All right, welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Callum. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there.
Yeah. So Evan, before I lead anything or lead the witness, what questions do you have for me? What things you know about our show? What would help you help our audience best?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd like to say I would have some curated questions for you, but I feel like, I see that you guys have done almost 2,000 episodes, so I'm sure you're a great Sherpa and guide through this process. So I'm willing to just to be transparent and open, and let's just go on the ride and see where it takes us.
Awesome. I I appreciate that. It is not easy to be a Sherpa in this market, that is for sure. Um, and so if you're okay with it, I'll kind of talk about that.
Yeah,
Might
absolutely.
be helpful. Um, most of our generation, as well as our target demographic, is highly addicted and unaware of their addiction to the get rich quick program. And they'll say everything but that, right? It's free, it's cheap, we can do this fast, we'll be efficient. This launch is going to be, guaranteed. Blah blah. It's all just a shadow or rendition, smoke and mirrors of get rich quick. And the challenge of the podcasting industry, and I love it. I'm in it, obviously. I know I want to be able to help and lead in it. But it is the challenge of amateurs having access to professional tools, is that there's a lot of people pleasing that takes place to get people on shows. And there's a lot of talk about vanity metrics and things that don't actually drive success. And so again, most people don't come in with your nature. Very few, like 1 out of 100, will come in
Hmm.
and say, "Yeah, no, exactly what you said. Very responsible, very professional. You've been around the block, you know." Not, I'm preaching to the choir. I'm pretty sure, but Alex Sanfilippo. Do you know who that is of Podmatch?
Yeah,
Him
yeah.
and I are
Hmm.
really good friends, and I'm inspired by his leadership because he's more charismatic and more kind than I am. And I'm more of the. I'm so tired of seeing entrepreneurs fail that I speak hard truths. And so, a little background: I was a failing entrepreneur as well. We're really more of an entrepreneur, trying to do the integrator role and hide behind the scenes on a few launches, even though I knew I needed to focus on my purpose, which is my vision is to bridge the economic gap between North America, South America, and the rest of the world. But that was a very difficult vision to want to step into. There was a lot of personal changes that I had to make to be qualified for it. And in the process, my first startup was invested in by Paul Buchheit, the inventor of Gmail, and Matt Cutts, the search director of Google. I was just a hired hand helping with the growth process, shadowing the main founder. And then I went on to launch Restaurant Connect as a junior co-founder. We bled out for 3 years, eventually made it to 36,000 recurring monthly revenues. We competed against Open Table, created reservation and dining room management and event planning software that really made a big impact in terms of hospitality, and worked with JW Marriott, the Key Island Golf Resort, Master Sherman Augusta. Almost sold my soul to the industry. It was a difficult experience, but we raised 100,000 with the Baylor Angel Network. We raised 10 million for that first company with Paul Buchheit and Matt Cutts. Then my buddy Jake called me, asked me to help build Video Power Marketing. Videopower.com was put on stage by Ryan Dice, called the YouTube ad experts of the world. After the founder of YouTube asked Jake to represent YouTube ads before it launched. Their producer, Travis Chambers, produced the #1 YouTube ad of the decade with Kobe Bryant, Lionel Messi on Turkish Airlines. I came in having built companies the hard way. He had a viral company that was crushing it with 2 interns. And we, he's a Jackson, most critical person I've ever met. I need your advice. And I was like, that's the worst compliment I've ever received. But um, I, I knew he's so loving. Jake Larson's one of the best leaders I've ever met in my life. And so I helped him triple revenues over 18 months. stabilize the operations, create infrastructure, all the boring things that nobody wants to do. And I told the team, I said, guys, look, Jake needs to be playing golf with other executives. He needs to be speaking on stages at conference and on podcasts, and he needs to be playing the piano, the jazz piano at those conferences. That's where everybody falls in love with Jake. All of those three things drive more deals. If Jake's doing anything operational, we're losing. Let's get him in his zone of genius. And so that's pretty much what we did. And our clients were John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur Fire, Dan Martell of SaaS Academy, Lewis Howe's School of Greatness, Dr. Eric Berg, when he had 160,000 subscribers, he's now got 14 million. Billie Jean Marketing, Michael Hyatt, T. Harv Eckert, even Pagan, all these guys came on. Dan Martell and John were there when I joined first. I remember watching John Lee Dumas and Russell Brunson. Jake's like, watch this, Jackson. You'd understand this stuff. And I took so many notes. I was like, holy crap. Funnels, digital marketing. I knew nothing about all that stuff. Viral ads. And I thought ads were the devil. That was just me as a small business owner, broke as hell, not wanting to invest. But we're the road warrior. We're winning through referrals. No, it's just hiding from the fact that you can't attract the market. So I learned these very hard but interesting lessons, and we did the Kickstarter launch for John Lee Dumas's first book, his Freedom Journal. And I watched him in 2 weeks make $500,000 on a journal launch. I was, what the heck? Like, this is so different than the world of business I had been involved in. So I share all that to ultimately allude to the reality that I do know the questions, that podcast guests should have the humility to want to ask and want to know about how do we distribute. And I agree with Alex Hormozy. It's a 10-year process. Just do your best every day to improve upon what you're doing. And in 10 years, measure the results once you actually have data. But until then, stop overthinking the data. Stop trying to shortcut it. Put in the principles, put in the work, make it happen. And so these conversations, to me, Evan, these are the ones that are the most important ones, because these are the ones where you and I get to explore, like, okay, well, what did John Lee Dumas do? What did Lewis Howes do? How do we implement that? How do we make sure that this episode becomes one of the ones that crushes it, and really helps open the door for entrepreneurs? Because, or do we focus on the entrepreneurs? Do we focus on helping them have a mindset shift? A little bit longer play. The payoff is less immediate, but is it what's right for us to do for the mass market? I don't know, but you have a huge vision of helping these entrepreneurs. I can 100% agree with you. Nobody knows how to sell their company. Most of them don't know what a P&L is. And they're not going to just trust the guy with long hair who lives down in Ecuador. That's not it. It's a collaboration of sorts. Every single time I interview somebody like yourself, it's a new opportunity to explore and find, is this the guy who can help me scale this message to the masses? Is this the guy who can help when our clients are looking at how do they get on the track path? And I've met so many people jumping into the baby boomer economics of flipping and selling businesses and stuff that it's kind of like REI. It's like they sell the real estate investment licenses and Coke machines these days, I think, because everybody's an REI genius and everybody's now an AI genius as well. But it's all right. How do we find the real LeBron James, the real Luca, the real Giannis? Like that. That's what we're looking for. So thoughts, questions, observations.
Yeah, I mean, in all transparency, I'm still on that journey myself. Like you said, 10 years is kind of that benchmark, and it's tough, man. Like, I was sitting in a remote job, just kind of consuming all the Hormozy content, all the diary of the CEO, the video department, just all this stuff. Like, oh, I can do that. They make it look so easy and crisp, and you get into it, and you're like, what the hell is this? This is not what I signed up for. Like you said, I bought into the, oh yeah, this is the dream. It's easy. Go financial freedom. It's out there, man. All you got to do is go out there and work hard and seize it. And it's tough. And honestly, I'm kind of on this like decision tree in my own life where I haven't gotten out of the red yet with my startup, and it's been over 2 years. And my wife's like, dude, you need to you need to get a job. And so it's like, well, do Do I go all in on job and part-time business now? Like what's, so, I've learned a lot, and I think I agree. I've learned more from the failures than I have the successes. And I think we kind of glorify these gladiators in the arena, and these mountaintop wins. But like, what the CEO of Apple does is not necessarily digestible or realistically applicable to what we're doing on this small scale, trying to get these things going. Because, like my greatest success is just calling 400 people over 2 days, is picking up the phone, cold calling people, like that's, hey guys, here's a YouTube video of me calling 400 people. This is exciting, right? You guys want to see this? Like, this is going to go viral. Check it out. Like, no one wants to see that crap. No one wants to, know that that's what it takes to get people on your platform and to get
Let me
success.
bother
And
you a
so,
little bit on that, Evan. Let me bother you a little bit on that. I do. John Lee
okay.
Dumas does.
Yeah.
Dan Martell does. And so you're right that it feels like nobody does, because in the market, in any product, doesn't matter if it's a shoe or if it's a super luxury home, the market only ever has 2 to 5% that are ready.
Yeah.
And if you're not pre-qualified for those other, and that's out of a pre-qualified audience. For luxury homes, it's even smaller, right? So the amount of times we have to face no, you and I, and what we do, we're both high ticket in what we're doing. And so the amount of times that we have to face no eventually psychologically says nobody wants this.
Yeah.
But in
So our
reality,
sample
we don't
size is too
have that
small.
resilient. So I'm glad you said that, the 400, because again, no, it's the entrepreneurs like myself who've been in the game for more than 5 years. I've been in it for 17 now, I think 15, somewhere in there. But the reality is, like, no, we're sick of hearing all the hype on stage. I get it. The hype's necessary to attract the masses to come in. But when I go into a networking event, and I'm talking to people, I'll say, "Hey, my name is Jackson. I'm the founder of First Class Business. We help business owners achieve sustainable revenue growth." And almost everybody in the room goes like this. It starts to fall asleep. But there's a couple of heads that go like this. They shoot up. And I know that those are the people I want to talk to. All right. They're the ones who've been through the ringer. They're the ones who are sick of all the get rich quick crap. They're the ones who know that sustainability is sexy as hell. Right. They want to know what hard work has to be done in order to make it happen, because they're not, they might have come in for the reason of it looks easy, it looks fun, American dream, simple, but they've stuck with it because they know that they're really after generational impact. They're after legacy. They're after making sure their family's taken care of, that they leave a nest egg, that they create that life that has been so elusive for them and for others. And they might, on the surface, act like or feel like the hype draws them in. But when I heard Glenn Morshower speak at Habit to Warrior Conference years ago, the guy's the best speaker I've ever heard. He's a very famous actor that does small roles, Star Trek and Transformers, things like that. But you would know him if you saw him. Anyway, he two guys got on stage and talked all about virality and hype and momentum and energy and getting people going. And I'm sitting there going through divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't do this. And as much as I wanted to, it was like, this, I can't do this. I would be so inauthentic and fake, and I'm not willing to do that. And Glenn Morshower gets on stage, and without shaming them, in the most graceful and best leadership light possible, I mean, it was just so beautiful how he ultimately said, hype, virality, adrenaline, these things that don't bring substance and value to our life, can be replaced with authentic celebration and gratitude. We can always be grateful for what we have. We can always focus on counting the victories, no matter how small they seem. And he just did this amazing job of getting people excited. But I got excited. I was like, holy crap, I can do that. That I can feel and I can value. So while your message, again, may not be valued by the masses, Evan, your work is needed. I just want you to know that your work is seriously needed. And if you and your wife can, weather the storms, the price that we have to pay to get to that mountaintop, right? There's a lot of prices that have to be paid. Then your subject could lead to generational wealth that's just unimaginable, because of the amount of opportunity that exists. And as Alex Hermosi said, it's that grand slam offer. You don't know whether you're going to get 3 points out of it or 3 trillion points out of that home run. But you've got you've got a lot of, it's like you coming on and the way you position yourself. I feel like I'm talking to Dan Martell. I feel like I'm talking to Alex. I feel like I'm talking to, I haven't talked to Alex before. That's not fair, but I've talked to Dan, John Lee Dumas. Right. You've got a lot of the characteristics and traits that say that you're no different than Pat Flynn or John Lee Dumas, or any of these legendary speakers who, have been able to pull it off and make it happen. So I hope you stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't fail if you don't quit, right?
Maybe.
And success is just one more failure that failed, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Just
So
gotta
there are
keep going.
opportunities there, and your digital assets. I'm sure you're probably optimizing them as much as anybody else, and working on what you can do for that. I will. They don't represent the quality that you are, as a consultant, but you as a consultant. That's why your phone calls, are going to work so well. It's because you know how to talk to people. You know how to
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah.
And so I need people like that for the entrepreneurs I work with at First Class Business. We're constantly preparing them for passive growth. Some of them are newer and they won't need you for, several years. Others are later stage, in their growth processes. And most of those want to talk to you before they want to talk to me.
Mhm.
So there's lots of opportunities that exist with all those people who've been on our show in the past as well. Almost every single one of them at some point need what you do, and I don't do what you do. So stay
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Questions, more observations, questions. It's been a good mastermind. I
Yeah.
needed this
No,
too.
I love it. No, it's good. And I appreciate your encouragement. Yeah, it's refreshing to know that there are others out there. And yeah, hopefully I can add value to what you're doing and, everything. So yeah. And like I said, I think those failures are really the building blocks of success. And a lot of people don't realize that that's the price you pay for success. And that's what it takes. So,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Okay. So what would the best outcome look like? Pragmatically speaking, from being on the show. We get an episode out. We're going to talk about your vision. Once we do, I'll be reading a little bit about your intro to get things going. I'll talk about the sponsors. We'll use the full 30 minutes next time to just dive in, and we'll manually book that too. That way, you and I can do that whenever we want to. But what would be the best outcome in your opinion?
Yeah. I mean, naively, maybe I'm thinking that, maybe I need to have higher goals and expectations of these things. I've done, 10, 15 podcasts, and part of me thinks I need to do 100 before I become like an expert speaker or some, start getting some momentum. And so maybe I need to set my sights to the moon, and then, at least I'll hit the stars kind of thing. But honestly, it's just a good conversation, and it's just about adding value. Like you said, if I can help somebody, if I can, you know, the problem is I feel like if I'm too fixated on like the outcome, then I'm not giving the process the time that it needs. And so honestly, I think it's to educate the audience about this problem. They can understand what's happening. They can understand how to avoid, this calamity that I'm seeing with business owners, deaths and divorces and just, asset things going wrong, and anything that can help them kind of see that this is something that they should prepare for once they start seeing success. Maybe not, it's not in the forefront of their mind, but it's something to think about 5% of the time, and start planning. Because I feel like there's a generational, it's kind of like a generational wealth, but if you think
Do you
about
mind
it.
if I circle back a little bit though?
Yeah, let's do that.
I love that. We're going to talk about that on the show itself, but I want to circle back to what you said, because I think part of what you said gravitates towards answering the way you think a podcast host wants to hear.
Yeah.
versus your real thought. And so let me harmonize what you said, because I love what you said. You downplayed the outcome, but we never defined what that outcome, like what a great outcome looks like. I think there was an underlying assumption, of some outcome, like I'm going to make a bunch of money on this or have a bunch of people sign up. But you then downplayed the process that you are virtuously following, which I love. And so you talked about how you want to get on the 100 podcasts before momentum, perhaps, and how you've had this thought process too of like the process itself is the value. So I would redefine and say that's a beautiful outcome. It's like if you're not prepared to be on stage, what are you doing on Oprah or Jimmy Kimmel? And if you go on Oprah tomorrow and 100,000 people call your phone lines, who's going to answer? And that's going to make you look bad. And that's going to make Oprah look bad. So, which is why she'll never put you on stage, which is why, you don't want to be on TED right now. You go on, I don't want to be on TED right now. I go on TED right now, I'm going to end up at one of the bottom rungs of views permanently. And that's going to permanently destroy my reputation, even though everybody's going to, hey, good job. You did really well. Like, it's okay. Your book launch, you've only got 3 reviews on Amazon. We're not going to tell you how awful that looks and how much we know you failed on that launch, but it's obvious you're not leading the world. Right. There are little things like that that happen along the way. And the ones who shortcut or minimize the value of that process you're talking about, they're never going to make it past the C list.
Yeah.
They can't. They already blew it. And so it'll be very hard for them to recover after certain moves. So thank you for ultimately outlining that as a potential outcome. I think it's wise to think bigger. Goals wise, like, sure, of course, aim for the stars, hit the moon. I totally get that, value that too. Personally, I don't believe in honoring my expectations. I like the quote from Shakespeare, expectations are the root of all heartache. I suffered enough in my past by expecting too much of my wife or expecting too much of people who worked for me. I realized that I was creating an environment that was extremely toxic. Expectation is a synonym of entitlement.
Yeah.
And that puts me in a position to not be grateful for what transpires. So I would, but I love the goals aspect of, goals, getting momentum, learning and building humbly while you've got certainty around your own expertise. Again, you have the listening skills to be great at what you do. And I can't find a guy or a gal who can walk with me through merger and acquisition opportunities because the egos are just too big, or they're inconsistent, or they're unreliable. So we look for 5 virtues, Evan. I'll give them to you so you know that they are. Love is our foundation. It's big. I'm always looking for guests who are dedicated to figuring out how to love better. Patience. You've been very patient today. Thank you for that. Persistent. You have a brand. You've been at this for several years. You didn't get your communication skills by skipping out on persistence or patience. And the last 2 are people who are consistent and who are reliable. And that's hard. That takes some time to measure. But it helps when we have systems for appointments and time passes before people come on. We use this podcast very much like a combine, like the NFL and the NBA. They have processes, or Harvard, and becoming a doctor, you've got to study for the 7 years. There's wisdom in letting things flow and cultivate. But I would be very excited to have you on the show. I'm very, very excited to have you in my network and see what possibilities and opportunities exist. Would you like to come back and do an episode?
Yeah, I think it would be great. We'd love to.
Okay. What does your timeline look like? What would be the ideal time frame? You want to do something as soon as next week, or would you prefer to wait?
Yeah, let me see what my schedule. Next week. Yeah, I'm pretty open and flexible, so I don't have a lot of appointments scheduled. I've got 8,000 numbers to call, so I'm about 200 out of 8,000. So that's kind of the thing I'm working on. So 8,000 phone calls, but I can obviously podcast in between those. So
How about next week, same time? Does that work?
Yeah, that works perfect. Okay, excellent.
I will put that on then next week, same time. And we do invite guests that are great to come back. And so we'll still have a shorter episode, but we'll be ready to we'll just dive in and record. The episode will be produced within 4 to 6 weeks. It gets launched on the RSS. But as I mentioned, then I'd love to have you come back and dive deeper. The markets typically, they get to know you first, and they get to like you, and they begin to trust. Right. So we try to create a 3-step sequence to dive a little bit deeper. And then, of course, the more you promote the interview for your own audience, the more likely people who already know, like, and trust you value what we're talking about. And I will never try to steamroll you or ask you something that puts you in a bind, but I will try to ask you questions that are buyer's objections. Things that are like, well, if I'm in that scenario, then how does that work? And we can have a real authentic conversation about what the market really looks like, what things you're seeing that I'm not, perhaps. I'll add some color commentary, but I think it would be a very, very valuable series of conversations.
Yeah, me too. I'd be excited to be a part of it. So
cool, man. Well, it's been a pleasure. I'll let you run. I got to run to a Zoom call, and I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and I will see you next week.
All right. Thank you. You too. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.